Perhaps due to the cholera outbreak or his grief of losing so many loved ones, William Bent attempted to sell the stockade to the United States government. After a period of negotiation, the government finally declined to purchase the fort. Out of frustration, William Bent set explosives in the gunpowder room of the fort. Lighting the fuse, he ran from the fort and watched as the explosion blasted the infamous stockade into ruins. With this act, the Citadel of the Plains was no more. An important era of Colorado's frontier came to an end. Just a 2-page article here. The Bent Brothers and their historic fort. This is from New Legends Magazine, summer 2021 free. So, newlegends.co. William Bucknell, A Guide to the Region's Legendary Restaurants, Shops, Entertainment, Nightlife, Outdoor Adventures. So, by Linda Wommack. And I'll read another paragraph later on. I got 3 comments I'm going to make about the article. And I got 2 Wikipedia things. Charles and William Bent. Okay, so you got 2 brothers, Charles and William Bent. It always starts out like that, huh? 2 brothers. And apparently one's racist, I think, because Charles Bent is going to get killed in the Taos Revolt. Charles Bent is going to get killed in the Taos Revolt, but William Bent, they fondly nicknamed him the Little White Man, She-V-Hop, the old She-V-Hop or something. She-V-Ho. The She-V-Ho. Hey, what's up, She-V-Ho? And then Charles was the White Hat. So, Little White Man. And William Bent's got a nice, strong face, but when I think Little White Man, how tall was William Bent? Maybe he was like a little white man, so he just kind of like a cute little white man that they just kind of laughed, at with, whatever, and let him live. And apparently William Bent is going to marry Owl Woman. He married Owl Woman. And Owl Woman is the daughter of Tall Woman and White Thunder, the keeper of the Cheyenne sacred medicine arrows. And they're going to have 4 children. 4 children are going to be born. Tall Woman, White Thunder. Owl Woman's father's name is White Thunder. You also have Tierra Blanca, White Earth. How come these Native Americans have all these white names and white this, white that, white everything? Damn Teddy Roosevelt sitting their great white fleet all across the world. White chocolate, like it's vanilla. It's not white chocolate, it's something else. White isn't even, it's not one color, it's all the colors in the spectrum. Colored? That doesn't even make any sense. Black is the absence of color. It's the absence of light. So there's no color, and then white is colored. You damn cracker Caucasians are the coloreds. And it's beautiful, right? The rainbow, purple. I mean, you see red all the way to purple. Fucking gorgeous. Yellow Wolf. Charles and William Bent, they knew Yellow Wolf. And I don't know if he's going to be like some sort of pathetic Native American or like a, stand-up guy. I don't know if he's going to be like a Squanto. And I don't want to say he's like pitiful or pathetic, but for his people, he's the last one left, and then he's going to die a terrible death. And Yellow Wolf is the chief of the Cheyenne and their friends. So he's married to Owl Woman, and Owl Woman is like bird person. Oh, I'm just an Owl Woman. Who's your father, bird person? No, it's White Thunder. And what the hell's White Thunder? Is that lightning? Are you talking about lightning? Thunder's a sound. There's no color to thunder. Color, sound, these are completely different senses. You have the tympanic membrane versus the optic nerve. They're just they're I remember Tim Gripchover when he was sitting there talking to Tony Gripchover. He was talking about his boss, and he was sitting there just kept on. He was talking about Mark, the boss, but Tony's deaf, so he didn't know sign language. He knew a little bit of sign language, but basically, I guess the guy had big arms. So whenever he was like, when you go to see Mark, I want you to tell me this. Bent's Fort, the citadel of the plains. Trade. The government refused to buy it, and William Ben is going to blow it the fuck up. It's 1830. He's a frontiersman, but you always got to be wary of the frontiersmen because they're also the, first one. You could be a nice pioneer family, a nice, little house on the prairie, or you could be like a fucking bloody savage, just killing people left and right, natives, and manifest destiny and starting, Taoga Yita's revenge and all this. So yeah, it was the great house. Yeah, there ain't no great house. That's a terrible house. Killed Taoga Yita's family. What could Taoga Yita had to? What else could Taoga Yita do? After the Yellow Creek Massacre, you're telling me after the Yellow Creek Massacre, you wouldn't have done the exact same thing as Taoga Yita? Oh, America. You know about Taoga Yita, 74? The two things on Wikipedia, Taos Revolt and Bent's Old Fort. The Taos Revolt, populist insurrection, January 1847. Now it's a revolt, it's a rebellion because it fails. And actually, that's not the first time Taos had rebelled. There was a Taos revolution. For 20 years, Taos had overthrown the Spanish. I want to say like in the 1500s. Let's bring that up too. The Taos revolution. We might have to go with old Popeye. With good old Popeye. The Pueblo Revolt. Okay, the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. Let's start there first, because you start in history on chapter 1. You don't start in history chapter fucking 1800 and whatever. So 1680, Pueblo Revolt, Popeye's Rebellion. Uprising of the industrious, it's a Popeye fucking revolution. They're going to kill 400 Spaniards, drive the other 2,000 settlers out of Dodge. Get the hell out of here, sons of bitches. And it wasn't just Taos. Taos is where, there's a Pueblo still there today, the Taos Pueblo. But it was all the Pueblos in the region in North New Mexico around Rio Grande. It was like fucking 50 different villages. It was almost like Pontiac's rebellion. It was just natural, right? You just had the French-Indian War just ended. The French are all wiped out. Now it's just the damn British? Nah, we don't like that. And so just spontaneously, everybody all across North America are going to attack the British garrisons in the Pontiac Rebellion. And the Pueblo Rebellion, Popeye's Rebellion, it's a revolution. It's a revolution because 12 years later, so for a decade, New Mexico was Popeye's. It was the Native Americans. The Spanish came, colonized. They kicked the Spanish out. And for 12 fucking years, it was Popeye's people. It was, the red man. It was whatever, the Utes and the Pueblo people, the Anasazi, the different tribes, the Yicarilla Apache and the, whatever the local ones are around here. The Comanche and the Apache and the Kiowa. The Utes. So these entradas, these incursions, right? Basically, that's what they try to settle up these colonies, but whenever push came to shove, they're like, shit, guess we got to go rob the shit out of the Native Americans. And they had guns and horses and scared the people, and basically they didn't like it, but they, the natives kind of would have to run up the hills and hide and just be like, what the hell? And hopefully they, hid some food up in the hills. Because damn Francisco Vasquez de Coronado. Okay, so that's happened, a while ago, right? 1598, Juan de Oneida had 129 soldiers, 10 Franciscan priests. and a whole bunch of, other crap. He put down a revolt at the Acoma Pueblo, killed and enslaved hundreds of the Native Americans, sentenced all the men 25 and older to have their foot cut off. The Acoma Massacre instilled fear and anger at the Spanish. So that's 1598, right? Coronado's 1540. And we're talking about 1680, the Pueblo Revolt. 1680, Pope kicked out all the damn Spanish. And the 1680s is Pope's fucking decade. And then, 1692, the Spanish come back and then, do whatever. But if you're talking about you're looking at, Spanish history, if you're looking at like the written recorded history, you're not going to know what the hell happened from 1680 to 1692. Why? Because of Pope. Because of the Taos and the Picurus and the Jimez and the Kiwa and the Tusk, the Onke, Owinga, Nambi, Kapu, Owinge, Taos versus Spain. Antonio de Oderman was no match for Pope. So Pope fucking kicked ass and took some names. Oh, Pope. Pope, a little bit about him. He's a Tiwa religious leader. So this is the Tiwa is going to, gather all the rest of the people up and overthrow their overseers. The Owinga renamed the San Juan Pueblo by the Spanish during the colonial period. So he's a Tiwa. He's from the San Juan Pueblo, which is now Owinga. Led the Pueblo Revolt in 1680 against the Spanish colonial rule. In the second successful revolt against the Spanish, the Pueblo expelled the colonists and kept them out of the territory for 12 motherfucking glorious years. It's like Reconstruction. It's like a bright period, a bright moment in time. And how come the damn English didn't have to, they fought the French and the Swedes and all these other imperialists. But how come the Spanish were pretty much conquered by the time the English? Why? Because of the native peoples. The Mexicans, the Native Americans, they went ahead and did the dirty work and kicked, basically Spain's ass, and all we had to do is kick them out of Cuba and Hawaii and just a couple other places. In 1898. So let's not dwell too much on this great Tiwa religious leader named Pope or Pope. Now, Bent's Old Fort, because that's what we began talking about. 1833 fort located in Otero County, southeastern Colorado. A company owned by Charles Bent and William Bent and Saran St. Verrain built the fort to trade with Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho Plains Indians. Oh, yeah, the Arapaho and the Cheyenne. Trappers for buffalo robes for much of its 16-year history. 1830. I thought it was in the 1830s. I thought it was 1830, not the... Okay, so 1833, and it was the main fort for 15 years. It was only alive for 16 years, apparently. The fort was the only major white American permanent settlement on the Santa Fe Trail between Missouri and the Mexican settlements, and it was destroyed in 1848. Santa Fe Trail, 19th century route through central North America that connected Franklin, Missouri with Santa Fe, New Mexico. Pioneered in 1821 by William Becknell, who departed from the Boone Slick region along the Missouri River. The trail served as a vital commercial highway until 1880 when the railroad arrived in Santa Fe. Santa Fe was near the end of El Camino Real de Tierra del Tro, which carried trade from Mexico City. So what's my point? The area of the fort was designated a National Historic Site under the National Park Service June 3rd, 1960. It's further designated a National Historic Landmark later that year, December 19th, 1960. The fort was reconstructed and it's now open to the public. So you could go see a fake version of Bent's Old Fort. So Bent's Old Fort used to be productive and useful for the Santa Fe Trail. Now it's just a tourist destination for people who like to see just, you know what it would be, how accurate, how close did they build it, to the original version. And are they cool? Because fucking Fort Garland has a bunch of assholes running their historic fucking museum up there, and it's awful when the people aren't actually excited about the history and what the museum that they are in has to offer. The Adobe Fort quickly became the center of the Bent St. Vrain Company's expanding trade empire, which included in Otero County. That's fucking way east, man. That's like freaking east. That's like not even, that's on the plains. That's not even on the damn, no wonder it was Arapaho and Cheyenne and not the Comanches and the Apache. That's in the plains. That's all the way. Taos, Santa Fe, company stores. Primary trade was with the Southern Cheyenne and the Arapaho Indians for buffalo robes. 1833, 1849, the fort was a stopping point along the Santa Fe Trail. It was the only permanent settlement not under the jurisdiction and control of Native Americans or Mexicans. The U.S. Army explorers and other travelers stopped at the fort to replenish supplies such as water and food and perform needed maintenance to their wagons. Kit Carson was employed as a hunter by the Bent brothers in 1841. He regularly visited the fort. Likewise, explorer John C. Fremont, he's got an accent over the E, I don't know what. They used the fort as both a staging area and a replenishment junction for his John C. Fremont expeditions. During the Mexican-American War in 1846, the fort became a staging area for Colonel Stephen Watts Kearny's Army of the West. So it was a total fucking manifest, genocidal, kill the Native Americans and take over their land kind of fort. I don't know if they meant for it to be in 1833, but eventually, 13 years later, 1846, it's almost a vital, thing for the Mexican-American War. And then it was so essential and important. Why didn't the U.S. government buy the damn thing? They had to recreate the damn thing anyways. Wouldn't it be better to have the original thing? So that was... Ralph Emerson Twitchell makes the following statement. Bent's Fort is described as having been a structure built of adobe bricks. It's 180 feet long, 135 feet wide. The walls were 15 feet in height, 4 feet thick. It was the strongest post at that time west of Fort Leavenworth. The construction of this fort was commenced in 1828. At a point on the Arkansas somewhere between the present cities of Pueblo and Canyon City, having been disadvantageously located, 4 years were required in which to complete the structure. On the northwest and southeast corners were hexagonal bastions in which were mounted a number of cannon. The walls of the fort served as walls of the rooms, all of which faced inwardly on a court or plaza. The walls were loopholed for musketry, and the entrance was through large wooden gates of very heavy timbers. It said he abandoned the fort in 1849. And then he builds another fort on the bluff above Big Timber's Bent's New Fort, where he conducted his trading business until 1860. He built that in 1853. The fort was reconstructed in 1976. Its authenticity was based on the use of archaeological excavations, paintings, and original sketches, diaries, and other existing historical data from the period. In popular culture, nothing I Red Dead Redemption, some Taos Revolt. Populist insurrection, January 1847, by Hispano and Pueblo allies against the United States occupation of present-day northern New Mexico during the Mexican-American War. So really, this is very characteristic, typical. It's in their history to rebel. Who's going to just, bow down and become other people's, some conquering person's slaves? So they had the 1680, right? 1680. But that was 100 and something years ago, 50, 60. The rebels, seeking better representation, regrouped, fought 3 more engagements. That was after 2 short campaigns. U.S. troops and militia crushed the rebellion. So 3 more engagements. They got defeated. They abandoned open warfare. U.S. troops were overwhelmingly victorious. It resulted in the New Mexico Territory forming, with proper representation and recognition for Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico citizenry in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. So they're saying eventually New Mexican territory was recognized as part of America. I guess. I don't know. So, overall American victory, right? So, yay, I guess. I don't know. Let's, the Revolt, Taos Assassinations. Is this going to be our guy? Yep, here it is. Y'all ready? Taos Assassinations on the morning of January 19th. 1847, the insurrectionists began the revolt in Don Fernando de Taos, present-day Taos, New Mexico, and nearby Taos, Pueblo. They were led by Pablo Montoya, a Hispano, and Thomas Romero, a Taos Puebloan, also known as Tomasito, a.k.a. Little Thomas. Romero led a Native American force to the house of Governor Charles Bent, where they broke down the door, shot Charles Bent with arrows, scalped him in front of his family. After that, they moved on. Charles Bent, though, was still alive, with his wife Ignacia and children, and the wives of friends Kit Carson and Thomas Boggs. The group escaped by digging through the adobe walls of their house into the one next door. When the insurgents discovered the party, they killed Charles Bent, but left the women and children unharmed. The rebel force killed and scalped several other government officials, along with others seen as related to the new U.S. territorial government. Among those killed were Stephen Lee, Acton County Sheriff, Cornelio Vigil, Prefect and Probate Judge, and J.W. Leal, Circuit Attorney. It appeared, wrote Colonel Price, to be the object of the insurrectionists to put to death every American and every Mexican who had accepted office under the American government. Arroyo Hondo and Mora massacres. The next day, alarmed armed force of approximately 500 Hispanos and Puebloans attacked and laid siege to Simoen Turley's mill and distillery in Arroyo Hondo, several miles north of Taos. Charles Ottobees, an employee at the mill, saw the men coming. He rode to Santa Fe, asking for help from the occupying U.S. forces. 8 to 10 mountain men were left at the mill for defense. After a day-long battle, only 2 of the mountain men, John David Albert and Thomas Tate Tobin, had survived. Both escaped separately on foot during the night. The same day, Hispano insurgents killed 7 or 8 American traders who were passing through the village of Mora on their way to Missouri. At most, 16 Americans were killed in both actions on January 20th, 1847. And then the U.S. Going to move quickly. 300 troops, Colonel Price, 65 volunteers, some New Mexicans, organized by Saran St. Verrain, the business partner of William and Charles Bent. Along the way, the combined forces beat back a force of some 1,500 Hispanos and Puebloans at Santa Cruz de la Canada and Embudo Pass. The insurgents retreated to Taos, Pueblo, where they took refuge in the thick-walled adobe church. During the ensuing battle, the U.S. breached the wall of the church, directed cannon fire into the interior, inflicting many casualties. Killing 150 rebels, they captured 400 more men. God damn. After close hand-to-hand fighting, 7 U.S. troops died. 7 U.S. troops died. A separate force of U.S. troops campaigned against the rebels of Mora. The first battle of Mora under Captain Israel R. Henley ended in a New Mexican strategic victory. In Henley's death, the Americans attacked again under Captain Jesse I. Morin in the second battle of Mora and destroyed the village, which ended the Mora campaign of the revolt. There is a connection with the Sand Creek Massacre. Let's just read this last article. So this article, Linda Wommack, the Bent brothers in the historic Fort Summer 2020. I already said all that. Okay. Charles Bent was murdered in the Taos Revolt. A grieving William Bent continued to negotiate for peace between the white man and the Indian, following his testimony in the military inquiries regarding the actions of Colonel Shivington at the Sand Creek Massacre. So what the hell? Charles Bent is going to get killed at the Taos Revolt, and You know, I understand you defending yourself, but how deep did you go? William Bent continued to negotiate for peace. What did he have to do? His testimony in the military inquiries. He was at Sand Creek Massacre. Was Charles Bent or William Bent at the Sand Creek Massacre? So that's a little bit about the Taos Revolt. I want to check out not Charles Bent, but William Bent. William Wells Bent, frontier trader and rancher in the American West with forts in Colorado, mediator among the Cheyenne Nation, Santa Fe Trail, Bent's Fort, Arkansas River, Colorado, Cheyenne Chief, Owl Woman, the daughter of White Thunder, a Cheyenne Chief and medicine man. What was it? Yellow Wolf, White Thunder, Yellow Wolf. William Bent was actually accepted into the Cheyenne tribe, become a sub-chief, holy moly, in the 1840s according to the Cheyenne custom. William Bent took Owl Woman's sisters, Eagle Woman and Island, as secondary wives. What? Eagle Woman and Island? They deserved better. He had a fifth child with Eagle Woman. After Owl Woman died in 1847, Island cared for her children. Each of the sisters left Bent, and in 1869 he married Adeline Harvey, the educated mixed-race daughter of Alexander Harvey, friend, prominent American fur trader in Kansas City. William Bent died shortly after their marriage. Okay, I was asking a different question about the Sand Creek Massacre. What does he have to do with the Sand Creek Massacre? Holy moly, there's something here. George Bent. Is it George Bent or William Bent? George Bent. No, William Bent. Robert Bent. I want to know what George Bent had to say. George Bent survived and married Magpie, a Cheyenne woman. George Bent did? Oh, George Bent. Okay, so George Bent's all right. George Bent's cool. William Bent is cool. Charles Bent, some reason, he got it in Taos. So, Shivington, November 28th, 1864, and a volunteer army had captured Bent's son Robert. And they forced him to guide the soldiers to the Cheyenne campsite on the reservation. What the fuck? The U.S. forces killed and mutilated between 200 to 400 Cheyenne in the Sand Creek Massacre. Charles, Julian, and George Bent were all inside Black Kettle's village when Shivington and his forces arrived. Charles, Julian, George. Maybe he got killed for Sand Creek Massacre. They were there, and they said that they forced Robert to... But why did they force Robert? Who's Robert? Was Robert in their tribe or something? Or let's just read these two quotes and call it a day. George Bent recalled that day. In the camps, all was confusion and noise. Men, women, and children rushing out of the lodges, partly dressed. Women and children screaming at the sight of the troops, men running back into the lodges for their arms. Black Kettle had a large American flag tied to the end of a large lodge pole and kept calling out not to be frightened and that the camp was under protection and there was no danger. White Antelope, when he saw the soldiers shooting into the lodges, made up his mind not to live any longer. He stood in front of his lodge with his arms folded across his breast, singing the death song. Nothing lives long, he sang, only the earth and the mountains. Whew. Black Kettle, White Antelope. Nothing lives long, only the earth and the mountain. Nothing lives long, only the earth and the Robert Bent. Robert Bent, he said this after the fire, and the warriors put the squaws and children together and surrounded them to protect them. I saw 5 squaws under a bank for shelter when the troops came up to them as they ran out and showed their purses to let the soldiers know they were squaws and begged for mercy. But the soldiers shot them all. All of Bent's grown children survived the massacre. Robert Bent testified in court against Shivington, who had forced him to guide the soldiers to the Cheyenne village. His brothers Charles and George Bent joined the Dog Soldiers band, as did Yellow Woman, who left William Bent to go with her son Charles. The Dog Soldiers led continuing resistance to drive the European Americans from the Cheyenne homeland. Charles Bent was later killed by scouts for the U.S. Army. What? Charles Bent was killed by scouts for the U.S. Army? I thought he was killed in the massacre. What is happening? Charles Bent was later killed by scouts for the U.S. Army. Okay, so why was Charles Bent killed? There, I'll title that. Why was Charles Bent killed? That's the mystery. That's the whole point of this whole video.